Yo everyone, what is going on? Welcome to another video. I hope you are all keeping well, and today I'm going to be talking about body fat and in particular why you are struggling to lose it. Because as a coach, I have literally seen all of the mistakes, but there are a few that pop up again and again and again, and they can really affect your fat loss efforts. And my bet is that you are making at least one of these, so make sure you watch till the end and let me know. And before I get started, it's really important to know that you cannot spot reduce fat, which basically means you don't decide where your body loses fat first and where it loses fat last. So there's no specific diet, or you could do all of the crunches in the world and it's still not going to favor stomach fat loss over back fat loss or over arm fat loss, etc. And oftentimes for people, their stomach is the last place for them to notice a significant difference in terms of fat loss, and that is just down to genetics. That being said, what I'm about to go through will just ensure you are losing fat as efficiently as possible, and the more efficient your fat loss is, the quicker you are going to see a change in your stomach area. So let's get started. And the first reason I see so many people struggle to lose body fat is because they set themselves completely unrealistic calorie and macro targets. This is something I literally see all of the time. Somebody setting themselves a calorie goal of 1,600 calories per day, whereas in reality, it should be closer to 2,000 calories per day, or somebody setting themselves a calorie goal of 1,200 calories per day, whereas in reality, it should be closer to 1,600 calories per day. And then what happens? They stick to it rigidly for maybe 1 week, 2 weeks max, and then consistency slowly starts to drop off, and eventually they just pack it in and they go around in that circle again and again and again. It could be for years. So here's what to do. And instead of asking yourself the question, what are the lowest number of calories I'll be able to stick to, you need to ask yourself, what are the highest number of calories I'll be able to consume and still lose weight in the process? Because the answer to that second question is a lot more likely to lead to a long-term permanent change versus going on a crash diet like you will be by following the first question. And setting yourself this initial calorie goal doesn't need to be super complicated. It doesn't need to be rocket science. Instead, use an online calculator, input your information, go with the calorie goal they set you for about 10 to 14 days, and then you can assess. So if after 10 to 14 days, your weight is trending in the right direction and your hunger levels aren't too high, that is perfect. Stick with it, do not change anything. Whereas if your weight hasn't really moved and you have been consistent with your calories, then you could decrease your daily calories by about 150 to 200 calories. Stick with that new calorie goal for 10 to 14 days and assess again. So you are starting as high as possible and then lowering if needs be. And the next thing that I want to talk about is protein and why this is possibly hindering your fat loss efforts. And the thing about protein is that it isn't just key for building muscle, but it's also vital for keeping you full and keeping you satisfied while you are on lower calories. And oftentimes I see people either just not paying attention to their protein intake, and as a result they feel quite hungry on a daily basis, or they go down the complete opposite route. They set this protein goal way too high, and as a result they can just never hit this target. So in a deficit, my advice is to set your protein goals somewhere between 1.6 and 2.2 grams of protein per kg of your body weight per day. So somewhere closer to that 1.6 gram mark if you are quite heavy and you carry quite a lot of body fat, or somewhere closer to that 2.2 gram mark if you are already quite lean and you have quite a lot of muscle mass. And as a ballpark guideline, I usually find that a protein intake of 30 to 35% of your daily calories works quite well because it's sustainable and it usually falls within that 1.6 to 2.2 gram bracket for most people. And if you struggle to hit your protein goal within your calories, then opting for more protein dense foods is key. And protein dense foods are pretty much foods that contain a huge amount of protein and not a lot of carbs or fats. So the likes of whey protein, chicken breast, tuna, lean beef mince, lean turkey mince, egg whites, ham, fat-free cottage cheese, these are all much better protein sources than the likes of breaded chicken or fatty mince or oily fish or whole eggs. And just because a food isn't as good for protein doesn't make it bad. It doesn't mean you should exclude it from your diet. That is not what I am saying at all. But what I am saying is that those more protein dense foods are a much more efficient way to get your protein in on lower calories. Before I move on to my next point, I would actually love to know what your protein goal is, because this obviously varies massively from person to person. Some people have huge protein goals, probably more than they actually need, and other people struggle to get like 70 or 80 grams of protein in their diet. So let me know what your goal is and if you have any tips and tricks that make getting more protein in on lower calories a lot easier for you. And next up, I want to talk about your calorie tracking accuracy. And this is huge because it's one thing downloading MyFitnessPal MyFitnessPal or whatever tracking app you use, but it is another thing actually tracking your calories with a high degree of accuracy. So let me give you a scenario, and let's just say for dinner one evening you are having pasta, chicken and pasta sauce, which is perfectly fine. But what you don't want to do in this situation is type pasta into MyFitnessPal, pick a random one, and then do the same for chicken and for your pasta sauce. Because if you do this, the calories you are actually tracking in MyFitnessPal are going to be way off. And in my experience, 9.9 times out of 10, it leads to you consuming a hell of a lot more than what you are actually tracking. And when the goal is fat loss, that is obviously problematic. Instead, to track the calories of this meal accurately, you want to weigh the amount of pasta that you are having. Then you want to scan the barcode on the back of the packet and enter the amount into MyFitnessPal. And then you do the same for the chicken and the pasta sauce. So weigh, scan and enter. And I'm not sure about other apps, but with MyFitnessPal, once you scan the barcode of a certain food item in once, then it is saved in your library forever, so you don't have to scan it again and again every time you are using it. Or if you don't scan it, I think it could be a paid feature now in MyFitnessPal, not 100% sure, but you can still search that food manually in the search bar at the top and find the right match. But whatever you choose to do, just make sure that you are weighing your foods and using the right entry in MyFitnessPal as opposed to using a random one and hoping for the best. All right, so what I want to talk about next is a huge part of what I preach, mainly because it is massively overlooked, and that is the types of foods that you are eating when you are in a calorie deficit. Because yes, if you are in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight regardless of what you eat, but it is much harder to remain consistent with a calorie deficit if a lot of the foods you are eating are quite calorie dense. So fatty protein sources, big portions of pasta and rice, sugary snacks like chocolate and sweets, liquid calories like cappuccinos and lattes, and the list goes on. And as I always say, that does not mean that these foods are bad. You do not need to completely avoid these foods in a calorie deficit. But when you are in a calorie deficit, you want most of your foods to be coming from lower calorie, higher volume alternatives, because that way you can actually eat a lot more food for the same number of calories. And I actually have a brilliant food swap video on this, but I'll pop a few clips on screen now. So the first one is a comparison between 286 calories worth of just pasta on its own versus 286 calories worth of a slightly smaller portion of pasta with some veg alongside it. As you can see, the veg makes a huge difference. The second one is a comparison between 200 calories worth of popcorn, 200 calories worth of Doritos, and 200 calories worth of nuts. And as you can see, the popcorn comes out on top massively in terms of volume as well. And the last one is 240 calories worth of whole eggs versus 240 calories worth of whole eggs and egg whites combined. And as you can see, the whole egg and egg white combo leads to a much bigger portion. So you can see the difference in the amount you're actually able to eat once you start opting for more higher volume foods. And egg whites, vegetables and popcorn, they are just 3 of many. So make sure to check this video out for more tips. And naturally, most of the recipes I post here are on the higher volume side of things anyway, so I have your back. Quick one before I get on with the video, everyone, and right now there is a massive sale on the Nutrition Hub. This is the cheapest it's been in a while, so if you want access to hundreds of my recipes that I update on a regular basis, so breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, desserts, you name it. If you want access to my personal calorie and macro calculator, so you can calculate your exact requirements based on you and your goals. And if you want access to your very own account on my website where you can track your progress as the weeks and as the months go on, this is the perfect place for you. And I will leave the link to the Nutrition Hub in the comment section below. It will be the pinned comment at the top. And if you use the code NUTRITION20 at the checkout, you will get 20% off. Okay, so last but not least, I want to talk about what might be a bit of a harsh reality for some, and that is the balance that you need to strike between eating out and not eating out. And if you are trying to lose fat at the moment and you are just struggling to do so, then maybe you have this balance a little bit wrong. And I want to start by saying that if your goal is to lose fat, then you absolutely can eat out and order in from time to time. But if you are doing so 3 or 4 times per week or more, then the chances of you actually remaining on track with your calorie deficit and achieving your goals are much, much lower. Now, the one caveat to this is if you do eat out on a semi-regular basis, but you eat in places that have calories on the menu for the most part, because even though these calories are not 100% accurate, they are still going to give you a very good idea of what you're consuming. But if you're eating out in your average restaurant, maybe you're ordering a couple of courses each time that are quite hard to estimate in terms of calories, then you will most likely end up consuming significantly more than what you think or than what you try to track in MyFitnessPal. And this is especially the case because restaurants, for the most part, do not care about calories. They don't care about calories at all. Instead, they care about taste. So if they can use oils or calorie dense ingredients to improve the taste of a certain meal, then they will. So what I recommend is capping your eating out at once per week most weeks. And when you are eating out, order just a main course versus 2 or 3 courses. And in my experience, designating 1,500 calories to this meal will be adequate unless you are going for something particularly big or heavy, like a big pizza or a big burger with a portion of chips on the side. And if you go for something particularly calorie friendly, like grilled chicken breast or a lean cut of steak with a portion of veg on the side and a small portion of chips maybe, then you'll likely be able to fit a couple of alcoholic drinks into that 1,500 calorie allowance as well. And the reason I like taking this approach, so setting that 1,500 calories aside, is because it just makes life so much easier versus trying to plan what you want days in advance, trying to estimate the calories in the meal you're going to have without even seeing it, etc, etc. That can just be quite overwhelming. Instead, you know that you are setting aside 1,500 calories. You know that you are going to order just a main course versus 2 or 3 courses, and that is pretty much it. And remember, your goal won't be to lose fat forever, so you won't need to make these little sacrifices forever either, but doing so during this period to help you achieve your goal will help a huge amount. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap the video up there. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure you comment below and let me know. I would actually love to know what tip resonated with you the most. If you're on a fat loss journey, what is the one thing or what are maybe the 2 things that you know yourself you really, really need to work on? Comment below and let me know, and if I can help, I will. Oh, and even if you comment below just for the algorithm, I would appreciate that a lot too. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you are all keeping well, and I will see you in the next video.